Hello and welcome to my review of the Sophomore album by UK singer-songwriter Sam Smith. Now, like Stranger Things and this album, these are returns of something I did not know I wanted or did not think I would ever get into. The reason why I'm making this comparison is because Sam Smith's first album, In the Lonely Hour, which came out in 2014, I completely ignored. And now I, to be honest, feel kind of guilty because I actually felt like really shouldn't have been sleeping on him so much. At the time, I didn't even know he was LGBT. I heard his songs at the radio. I heard them at where I worked, and of course, music that you listen to while you're at work, it's not going to be necessarily always your favorite song after that, even if you liked it beforehand. So his song "Stay With Me" literally drove me insane. I had to be honest. It was a beautiful. I'll always appreciate his voice, but the song just that song I can't listen to because it'll just always remind me of working at the store. And it's unfortunate, but his songs were so overplayed back in 2014, 2015. And now we have his new album, and to be completely honest, I don't know if this album is going to have the same sort of mainstream appeal that his first album did, kind of all out of the blue. But anyway, because I'm commenting also because Stranger Things has just returned, and I also slept on Stranger Things when the first season came out, and now I'm finding myself actually watching it, and now I'm addicted to the show. So that's why I'm comparing these two, because it's like these things I didn't think I wanted, when they come back a second time, that's when I suddenly kind of get more interested. So this is where, if you see my track review of Too Good at Goodbyes, which I won't talk about a lot in this review, I'll just link it in the description box. You can watch my review of that song. That was when I finally was like, okay, I need to pay attention to this artist. I was actually listening to a Sam Smith song without sort of having it forced down my throat through, radio and through just like pop culture telling me I need to like this artist. Because to be completely honest, finding out that he was gay did make me a little bit more interested. I have to be completely honest. Um, because as a gay man myself, I'd love to see a lot more um, sexualities represented in mainstream media. We're starting to get that with like women. They're starting to be a little bit more open about singing about different bisexual relationships or being a little bit more vague about their sexuality. But when it comes to like male singers, they're so formulaic. They're always straight men. It's always going to be like, I mean, we do have Adam Lambert, we do have some, but even Adam Lambert, he's careful not to like put the actual him pronoun into his songs to make it sound like he's actually singing about a guy. He's always so vague about it. And I really appreciate that on this record, Sam Smith finally decided to like very boldly assert that this album's definitely going to be about guys. He's not going to skirt around it by using vague pronouns like he did in The Lonely Hour. That album never had any direct reference to his sexuality. It was all open and vague. I understand why he did that. He was trying to pander the general public. Now he's established, he can do what he wants more, and he can be more open. And this album shows that he's been reconciling with that. And there's one song, which is definitely my favorite on this record, where that all kind of is culminated, and it's the center part of this album that I think the rest of the themes kind of revolve around. Sam Smith's voice is undeniably good. It's smooth like butter. It does a lot of amazing, it has amazing vocal range. He has a very nice vibrato, a very, very nice falsetto, albeit sometimes a little too much. I don't necessarily want to hear it all the time because it can get a little forced, and his voice doesn't necessarily sound as rich when he really reaches for those high notes. But he has such a rich tenor voice as well. He's definitely a tenor. He's definitely not a bass, which I can empathize because I would certainly not be a bass. I do not have a super deep voice. And, despite all these things, he does come off with a very conventional male sounding voice. The reason why I'm commenting on this, which might sound a little strange, of course he would sound like a male, is the trouble is with when I was originally exposed to his music, it was a little bit too Michael Bublé and Josh Groban. I will never be into that kind of music. Michael Bublé music, like if you seriously wanted to like talk about Chinese water torture, talk about like making me just like so frustrated. I hate Michael Bublé music. I hate that kind of cliched, like smooth singing, like, yeah, their voice sounds good, but it is throwback. It's a little bit more swing influence. There's some jazz. I'm not a big jazz fan to begin with. You should let that know off the top of my head. Anyway, Sam Smith definitely went in that lane. He did James Bond-esque kind of music with the orchestral vibe, and it's talent, it's good, but it's not my style. So that's also why I was kind of put off by Sam Smith all those years. Now this album, that's definitely not gone. He definitely is a crooner, but it's a crooner that I can listen to because I don't know, I just feel so much more feminine emotion behind his voice and his songs. And maybe it's just me finally interpreting that. I'm sure if I listened to In the Lonely Hour now, I would get that more. But I haven't actually fully listened to that album yet, which is something I'm going to do eventually. I mean, I really do need to catch up. But this album, I'm almost treating it as his first album because it's from his first album for me. And not every song I love. It's sometimes a little bit just middle of the road. And I was expecting that. My expectations were not humongously high because this is not my favorite genre of music, and also he's not an artist that I was feverishly excited for his return. But I was interested to see where he was going to go. I do believe that from what I've heard, this is definitely a step in the right direction from his first album singles. Like they were good, but I feel like this is just showing some more songwriting progression, mainly because it's just more honest and open, and the fragility is just a little bit more. He's more vulnerable, and I appreciate that because I don't know, maybe I'm just a really sad person, but I really like when other artists feel pain and seem pain and sad. You know, I hate the Michael Bublé's who you can just hear behind their voice. They're just confident, sort of masculine swagger. Like their songs are never like, there's never a hurt to their voice. It's always, I'm just going to woo you with what I can do with my rich male timbre. And it, to me, it just is a complete like, no, I'm just not interested. I want vulnerability. I want fragility to, you know, that masculine facade. I don't listen to a lot of male artists to begin with. If you look at my channel, you'll probably notice that. So Sam Smith comes in as someone who I refreshingly kind of feel that vibe from on this record. We have a lot of ballads. This is pretty much an album of ballads. You know, he had Latch from his first album, which was a huge, you know, kind of pop EDM crossover song. He doesn't do that on this album, but I wasn't necessarily expecting him to. I mean, if you look at the album cover, everything, it's just reflective. It's a personal introverted kind of story, and I appreciate that. Some people were like, this album's too, you know, boring. There's not a lot going on with like production. Yeah, the production's not really meant to steal the show. It's all about his voice and the melody. Definitely some very melancholy, very beautiful melodies. I definitely get the Motown vibes, but this time he's going full gospel, which I'm definitely in love with. I do like gospel music, believe it or not. I know I'm not big into Motown, I'm not big into swing music and jazz, but a little bit of gospel never hurt nobody. Though, albeit I'm not like a preachy, I don't like to listen to Jesus type music. He does go a little bit in that territory, but it's just, you know, he's an admitted agnostic. And although some of these songs may make him sound like a devoted Christian, he's struggling with his faith. And I can understand that. We are all brought up with a certain faith background, and now we have to understand how our religion impacts who we are and how we view ourselves and understand reality. So on songs like Pray and on Him, capital H-I-M, which is a brilliant song title and a brilliant sort of dual meaning kind of song, he's reconciling with this, and I don't find it to be preachy or to be pushing religion down your throat at all. It's just beautifully suited to sort of craft the gospel sound and tie it into this sort of understanding of like acceptance, because the, you know, Christian community and the religious community still needs a lot of acceptance and love for people who are different, especially of sexuality. Songs like Burning, those are sort of the lower parts of the album because they're so predictable and formulaic for me. Burning is nice, but it has the least accessible melody to me. So it's probably my least favorite. And like I said, Him is definitely my favorite song because, I mean, it's just so cathartic. It has, you know, the choir is very loud in the background, so it definitely builds and builds and feels powerful. And then, of course, when he ends with that very long, prolonged I love him, it's just so rich and so varied in melody that it feels so impactful and emotional. Other songs that I really love is his collaboration with YEBBA. I've never heard of her before, but apparently she's another singer-songwriter who's up and coming, who's starting to release music. This song called No Peace, They're actually a really good pairing for voices. Their voices are kind of similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, one's male and one female, but Sam Smith in this album in particular, I mean, like I said, you can hear him not trying so hard to sound like that male crooner. So his voice can get really, when he sings this one line where he says, "Tears are in my eye," he says it in such a soft way that I really empathized with it, because it's not how you would expect, a straight man to sing that lyric. It was just so painfully like I rich. I don't know how else to describe it, but that one like part of the song will always be like one of my favorite parts, because it's one of the few times where he does a falsetto that doesn't feel overpowering to me, and it feels really like nuanced and emotional and painful to listen to. You can feel the tear in his eye when he sings that line. Anyway, the lyrics are beautiful. I mean, the lyrics of all this album is very relatable, especially to a 25-year-old guy who's navigating relationships and fully understanding that, yes, I am gay. I'm not afraid now to tell people that I'm gay. I mean, I'm only a year younger than him. I can definitely understand where I'm with my life. Like, I'm dating. I'm now confident to tell people that I'm gay, and also to be a little bit more loose in my presentation. But at the same time, now that I've opened myself up to this, it's like really overwhelming and powerful. I'm a very sensitive person, and I can tell Sam Smith is as well. On a song like "Say It First," he's singing about that thing we all kind of feel sometimes in a relationship, where we kind of crave that emotional sort of response from someone. When we give and give and give so much emotion, and we're kind of not sure, is that person really on the same page? Do they really think, that deeply about me? Is it that strong? I want you to say it first. I want you to tell me that you love me, because I'm not entirely sure. I love you. You know my feelings. I'm open about it. I talk about it. But a lot of guys in particular, when it's a guy and a guy relationship, it gets really complicated, because yes, one of them tends to be a little bit more masculine. It's always not always this way, but tends to be. So one tends to be a little bit more communicative than the other. And like when a woman is with a man, usually the woman ends up being very emotional, attached, and the male sometimes can be a little distant and stoic with his feelings. And that can be really difficult. And it's really difficult when you put two men together in that regard sometimes, because, you know, either none of them want to talk about their feelings, or one of them does and the other's not really responding, and you're thinking, what's going on here? You don't have gender stereotypes necessarily to play off of, so everything is just more kind of amped up. And I think it's always hard in any relationship, but in my experience I've noticed that, you know the lack of emotion from a partner, it's a real problem, of course, with any relationship, and especially to anyone who is super sensitive, who really cares about communication and emotion, and making sure they're on the same page, in terms of all the feelings that are so strong for us. Is it the same for the other party? Another song, Palace, it's a very slow burning kind of song with just a very bass acoustic vibe to it. It's not my favorite again, but there is that one key change when he sings that does carry the song. It's basically that one note that he sings in the chorus that carries the whole song. The rest of it lyrically is reconciling that love is never a waste of time. I miss you. I still care, but sometimes I wish we never met. I feel that vibe a lot with, I can understand when something maybe just isn't quite working, and there's this frustration of like, oh, it would have been so nice if maybe this had never happened. But at the same time, it's important that it did. I know we'll both move on. You'll forgive what I did wrong. They will love the better you, but I still own the ghost of you. I mean, it's such a melancholic sentiment of saying like, oh, I'll only ever have this ghost of you in my memory. But it speaks to a good way of understanding when the relationship breaks down and it's rough because people still are attached, that you can learn to sort of come away from it and step back and understand and accept what happened, accept that this person needed to come into your life and leave, like all of us do often, far too often probably, but it's just the way dating works and it's the way love works. It's a painful game. You feel that pain. That's all you feel. Now, the one song that sort of takes you away from that, the one upbeat song, the one song that you could possibly exercise to, is Baby, You Make Me Crazy. It's actually one of my favorite songs, if not maybe my second favorite song on this album. I love the positive, upbeat side to this. This is that one unapologetic love song that's not strings, there's no strings attached. It's just, I'm in love with you. It's that heightened euphoria of the relationship. And the doo wop swing background production really suits the sound of his voice and the melody. So it's catchy. It makes me want to listen to that kind of music, blues and swing music, which I am not interested in whatsoever. But he sells it for me. He does a very good job of it. I mean, I applaud Sam for this song because we did need a little bit of levity on this album because the other two songs I haven't talked about, okay, Midnight Train, I definitely enjoy that song. I don't know, people are saying that it sounds like a Radiohead song called Creep, which I have not heard. I should probably listen to it, so I'm not going to comment on that. I love the melody. I love the distorted vocals that he has in there. He has a little bit of that electronic production going on, but it's very sparse, and I kind of appreciate it. I mean, I could see why some people find it underwhelming. It does get a little repetitive, having the same sort of percussion that's very sparse and airy for every single song with the piano mixed in and the orchestra. But don't get me wrong, I mean, that sounds beautiful when it's employed. So, Midnight Train, it's saying like, I've got my reasons, you've got your reasons. I've got to leave. I got to keep my distance to protect myself because if I get too attached, I'm going to fall apart. I still love you, but every night I'm going to take that midnight train back to myself, figuratively, literally. I imagine it's like when you're driving out on a date in the middle of the night, because you just met someone and you're so excited, but you can't stay the night because you're just concerned. So you had a great night, you have to drive yourself back, and it's a long drive, and you're reconciling all these emotions. I feel that vibe on this song. It's a good song to listen to when you're when you're driving in the car at night because you really feel as though you're riding that soul train, of emotion at night, reflecting on what just happened, my feelings of this guy or whoever I met. Is this going somewhere? Do I want to get too involved? How do I play this cool? How do I be patient? How do I keep myself together? Because self-preservation is important. We give ourselves to people, but sometimes we do get hurt really badly, and it's rough, and it hurts our self-esteem, it hurts our view of the world, and our ability to love again. And there's one other song, Nothing Left for You, which is on the deluxe edition, that also talks about this. He says, I gave my heart to a goddamn fool, and now there's nothing left for you. I mean, I've been in relationships where guys have like, look, I'm so drained from from my ex. I can't love anyone right now. Hopefully one day that will be refueling will happen where you can feel like you can give love again. But I totally understand the sentiment of people feeling as though in that moment, it's just love is drained. I need a moment to be in by myself, to make sure I keep myself in the priority. As selfish as it sounds, it's really important. If you lose that connection with yourself and understanding what feels good for you and what feels right for you, you'll keep getting hurt and you'll start to feel very depressed by the whole thing. I've definitely really struggled with this. So I really relate to Midnight Train. I think it's got a really catchy, soulful melody that just carries, like, it's like a rhythm that just carries along that kind of message really well. Then we have the final song, Pray. This song was inspired by trips he took to the Middle East where, he's an agnostic, but he was inspired by how people suddenly would come to religion to understand life and death and all of these things. And this is sort of his moment of like realizing I wanted to get on my knees for something bigger than me. I wanted to feel that power. So I pray for love, for hope. He's not specific about what it is, but you definitely feel that sort of connection with something higher. And of course, he employs the choir in a very beautiful call and response sort of manner that harkens to a church hymn. I'm young and I'm foolish. I've made bad decisions. I block out the news, turn my back on religion. Don't have no degree. I'm somewhat naive. I've made it this far on my own. He's kind of basically reconciling his past, understanding where he's gone without religion. But maybe he might need it at some point. He's gone so far without it, but faith is so important. And I'm going to pray for a glimmer of hope. Can we have a one-to-one? Let's talk about freedom. Everyone prays in the end. And that's a really powerful line of everyone prays in the end. I mean, it could come off as preachy, but again, the definition of pray is very vague and open. That could mean a lot of different things. It's not just like a Abrahamic thing. So I really love, it's not my highlight song. There's a bit of Timbaland production in this song that is very left field and different from the rest of the album. I can see how it's maybe needed because it shows a little bit more edginess, it's a little bit more experimental. I don't know though. I feel like this album, you're in the one lane, you might as well stick with it. It's just, it's like one sound, it's one encapsulating sort of reflective, kind of slightly dark sound that he's exploring and understanding all the facets of himself and being vulnerable. It's an album of ballads, and I don't know how it's going to do with radio. I can definitely see, he's proved that ballads can be on the radio 24/7. So I could definitely see songs like No Peace, Pray, Say It First. I could see all those songs dominating the radio. It's just a question of, is the mainstream going to want to embrace it again? Because now I feel as though the hype has died down, and that's when I kind of get more interested. He feels less like a mastered, product, and he feels more like an independent, soulful artist, and I appreciate that now. I always appreciate what he does. I think he's a great artist. The thrill of it all, it's not thrilling in the way you might expect, but the phrase of it is meant to be reflective. It's meant to be sort of lachrymose in a way, because it's meant to sort of be just all about like that sort of not having regrets, but that feeling of, gosh, life is such a ride, and it really throws you for a loop. But I'm finding ways to be hopeful and get moving forward and find love throughout all of this. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this album. Again, his voice is so beautiful. Again, it's just sometimes those falsettos I do find like, it's not my favorite thing to listen to. It does seem a little strained, but I can appreciate it. I know he wants to have a really wide vocal range, and I really like to see him do that. So when he gets really low, it's so rich and sonorous. And again, this strays a little bit from the Michael Bublé aesthetic that really turned me off to his earlier stuff. But that was my fault. I wasn't reading into it. I was just, judging a book by its cover. Let's put it that way. I think a lot of people who just will obviously love Adele, I can see him being the male version of Adele. He has that sincerity. He has that vocal, vibrato. There's a bit of differences, and I think they're a worthy pairing. I think they're definitely, they would be an amazing vocal pairing. It'd be kind of interesting who would overpower who. I could see Adele, she is a little bit more powerful in her delivery, overpowering him a little bit, but because he is a little softer, and it's not a bad thing. They're both very talented. So overall, it's a very good album. It's not my favorite, but I do think it's one of the better albums of this year, definitely by someone in the pop sphere. And I definitely hope that, his singles from this record, if there are some, do get recognition. But beyond just the fact that they're sort of like, that they might just be like some cheesy ballad, because they're not. They're so much more dimensional than that. But as I said, it's still not my favorite sound of music, or it's not, something I'm going to listen to over and over and over again in the future. So let me know what you thought, and I will keep doing more reviews. So subscribe if you liked it, and I will be with you in the next review. So thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.